Welcome to the BettingPros PGA Podcast. I'm Pat Fitzmaurice, joined by Bo McBrayer. We have got a signature event on the PGA Tour this week. It's the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Bo and I will give you a full betting preview of the Arnold Palmer. We'll also do a quick recap of the Cognizant Classic. We will share our early betting cards with you, and then we'll make our one-and-done picks at the end of the show. Joe Highsmith had one heck of a weekend, winning the Cognizant Classic by 2 shots. He made the cut on the number on Friday and then proceeded to shoot a pair of 64s on Saturday and Sunday. Over his final 2 rounds, Highsmith had 13 birdies, an eagle, and only 1 bogey. The 24-year-old was simply magnificent in winning his first PGA Tour event. We've had 2 first-time winners in a row, back-to-back. Bo, you live bet Highsmith at 18-1 yesterday before his surge took him to the top of the leaderboard. Very nicely done. Highsmith was the second straight long shot winner, as I just mentioned, on tour, on the heels of Brian Campbell's win in Mexico the previous week. But Highsmith is a really good young player, strong off the tee, good with the irons, good around the greens. He played well late last year after the Tour Championship, at a time when a lot of golf fans aren't paying attention. Highsmith won by 2 shots over J.J. Spaun and Jacob Bridgman. Bridgman also shot a 64 on Sunday and had the clubhouse lead for a while, but it did seem inevitable that at least one player would overtake him. Jake Knapp opened the Cognizant Classic by shooting a course record 59 Thursday at PGA National. Knapp held the lead after each of the first 3 rounds. His Waterloo was the 11th hole on Sunday, a par 4 with an approach shot over a pond. Knapp's approach shot went into the water, but part of his ball was above the surface. He tried to splash it out, failed the first time, moved his ball a few feet the second time, chipped on in 5, 2-putted for a calamitous triple bogey, and that was the end of Jake Knapp. He made no more birdies the rest of the way after stacking them up over his first 3 rounds. PGA National played surprisingly easy over the first 3 days before finally showing some teeth on Sunday. The cut line is normally above par in this tournament. This time you needed to be 5 under par or better to play into the weekend. There just wasn't any wind the first few days, and the players were able to go in the attack at a course that often requires the pros to play defensively. Bo, what did you make of the Cognizant Classic, and how are you going to spend your Joe Highsmith money?
Knowing me, I'll probably blow it on more bets, hopefully to turn it into more money. But thank you, Joe Highsmith. I've already mentioned your name a few times on the show this year. I mentioned it a few times on the show last year. Very promising young player. You mentioned his iron game. He did make the cut on the number, which was the lowest cut this event has ever seen. -5 is insane because when you look at Jake Knapp's scoring, or even let's look at Shane Lowry's scoring, -13 is where he finished up, or -14. And in almost 80% of the years past, where Shane Lowry has been a top 5 contender in this event, he would have been a top 5 or even a winner at 14 under par, and he wasn't even in the top 10 this year. A right overseed to make the Bermuda grass look more green this time of year, because it is a dormant grass when the weather cools down. It made this golf course super easy, especially with the absence of any wind the first 3 days. And then there was some passing showers on Wednesday that softened the golf course considerably. Thursday scoring was off the charts. The 59 with Jake Knapp was still 4 strokes better than anybody else. But Bridgman, let's go back to Bridgman. 5 under par, making the cut on the number after 36 holes. Gained 11 strokes on the field over the last 2 days, including a sparkling perfection 64 on Sunday, when the scoring average had returned to its previous PGA National standards of around even par. Everybody was kind of hovering around even par on Sunday for their rounds, except for obviously we got Bridgman, who shot an early 64 on Sunday. But even more impressive is Joe Highsmith shooting 64 in the afternoon on Sunday when things were getting a little hard. You could tell the greens were quickening and the breeze was picking up. And he went 1 under par on the vaunted bear trap. 15, 16, 17. Notoriously has derailed a bunch of title contenders headed to the finish. Jake Knapp didn't even make it to the bear trap before he fell apart with a truly stupid line of decision making. I'm surprised his caddy didn't just haul him fireman style back to the drop area. instead of trying to play the ball out of the mud twice. But Highsmith gets all the props. I just saw a red hot golfer. After the fifth hole, he was 3 shots back. He had about 8 golfers in front of him on the standings, but I saw that he was playing out of his mind. And I was like, well, what's the fun in saying, oh, Jake Knapp's going to hold on and win this thing because he's going wire to wire, or anybody else in that field? I didn't really see anybody impressive, maybe other than the way Knapp was playing. And I was like, Joe Highsmith is playing the best of anybody today, so why not play plus 1,800 on Joe Highsmith? I've already talked about him this year, and sure enough, I went to work and I checked back a few holes later, and he had gone 5 under over the last 6 holes and had taken the tie for the lead at that point. And then Jake Knapp blew up on 11, and I was in the money. And he went 1 under on the bear trap, which was spectacular. I was so excited to see that guy go into the bear trap and stare it down and go 1 under par, where everybody else was struggling.
Yeah, normally you do not see guys make big moves up the board like Hightower and Bridgman did on Sunday. You can have the field come back to you at PGA National with guys making big triple bogeys a la Jake Knapp. But, man, for someone to climb that rapidly and for those 2 guys to make the cut on the number, I mean, think about that, like -5. It took good scores just to get into the weekend.
Yeah, they were 8 shots back after 36.
Just wild. Now, we will get to the Arnold Palmer Invitational presented by MasterCard in just a moment. But first,
download the free Betting Pros app for iOS and Android. With Sportsbook Sync, automatically track your bets across all major sportsbooks in one spot. Easily monitor your bet performance by sport and bet type, including game picks, props, and parlays. Create custom betting systems to find winning trends and profitable opportunities. Get a free trial of Betting Pros Premium by downloading the app at bettingpros.com/apps and activating your trial on the upgrade screen.
Now, the Cognizant Classic was a nice warm-up, but the Florida swing really gets cooking this week with the Arnold Palmer Invitational. The field for this event is outstanding. There are 72 qualifiers. The field will be trimmed to 50 players, plus ties after 2 rounds. I think the cut also automatically includes any player within 10 shots of the lead. The Arnold Palmer will, of course, be played at Arnie's Club, Bay Hill in Orlando, Florida. Bay Hill is a real butt kicker of a course, Bo. Joe Highsmith, 19 under par last week. No one's getting to 19 under par this week. It's just not going to happen. I don't care if there isn't a breath of wind. Bay Hill is a par 72 measuring 7,466 yards. Water comes into play on half the holes. There are bunkers all over the place. Bay Hill has some of the thickest, snarliest rough on the PGA Tour. The Bermuda greens are big and fast. Windy conditions often prevail at Bay Hill, and it looks like that will be the case again this year. They're expecting winds of 10 to 20 miles an hour on Thursday, along with cooler than usual temperatures in the upper 60s. It'll be warmer and less breezy on Friday and Saturday, with temperatures in the upper 70s and low 80s and winds in the 5 to 15 mile per hour range. Then we get some interesting weather conditions on Sunday, Bo. Some rain in the forecast, along with winds of 10 to 20 miles an hour. Could be a bloodbath on Sunday. So good wind players could have an edge this week. Long iron play is another key at Bay Hill, with players hitting a lot of their approach shots from 200 yards or more. Tee shots, too. Bay Hill's shortest par 3 measures 199 yards. One is 231. Another's 221. The par 5s are mostly pretty gettable, so par 5 scoring should be a key. Scottie Scheffler is the defending champion. Scottie finished 15 under par last year to win in a runaway. He was 5 shots clear of runner-up Wyndham Clark. Scottie also won here in 2022, but the winning score was only 5 under par that year in some tough conditions. Bo, your guy Kurt Kitayama won here in 2023, finishing 9 under par. He went into the weekend at 9 under par, then hung on for dear life. Bryson DeChambeau won here in 2021 at -11, and Tyrrell Hatton won here in 2020 with a U.S. Open type of winning score, 4 under par. Bo, your thoughts on Bay Hill?
Well, it's pretty interesting that this was the tournament that really kickstarted my addiction to golf betting, because it was that Kitayama win in 2023. that was a 250 to 1 payout that I had because I was just playing a guy who had a good course fit and a relative unknown at that point. He was a rookie on tour that year, and it was an amazing vaulting into. I'm probably still spending that money, so I don't know if I should be spending Jake Knapp money or Joe Highsmith money yet, because Kurt Kitayama is still paying the bills from 2 years ago. I think that's a great golf course for challenging the whole bag. It's very challenging if you get out of position here because it is a long golf course with very fast greens with lots of slope and runoff. There's hazards everywhere. It is quintessential carnage. And you know me, I love carnage. This being a signature event kind of takes away some of that luster where you see some of those deeper shots come back to the field and win a la Kurt Kitayama. Being that it is a limited field, limited cut event, I don't know that we're going to get the same kind of drama, but it is going to be a stronger field that is going to be fun to bet on.
Yeah, let's get to the odds. All odds are courtesy of DraftKings. As of Monday morning, we'll start with the favorites. Defending champ Scottie Scheffler is a heavy favorite at plus 330. Rory McIlroy is plus 800. Xander Schauffele is 13 to 1. Ludwig Åberg is 16 to 1. Collin Morikawa 20 to 1. Justin Thomas and Hideki Matsuyama are 25 to 1. Patrick Cantlay 28 to 1. Tommy Fleetwood 30 to 1. Sungjae Im 40 to 1. And at 45 to 1 are Will Zalatoris, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Keegan Bradley. Who do you like from among the favorites?
Right off the top, I'm looking at my model right now, and 1 and 2 are Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. Being that this is a Scottie Scheffler type special course, you'd have to be hard pressed to not bet him at all. I don't know if I'll bet him outright at plus 330, honestly. But live betting is certainly something I will be interested in this week. I am going to be betting right off the bat with Rory McIlroy at plus 800. Another great course fit, long iron extraordinaire. And honestly, I'm more surprised that Rory McIlroy is 5th in this field in scrambling, which is a huge metric in my weighted model. He's pretty much top 10 in every category except for long par threes, where he's not that bad off either. I think that Rory McIlroy is the class of this field for at least making money on betting. Scottie Scheffler very well could win this thing and pay off at plus 330, but you don't get a lot of meat off that bone. I think I'll start with Rory and go and maybe a little bit of Xander Schauffele at plus 1400, but Scottie right off the bat betting now, it just seems kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, plus 330 against a really stacked field. Not ideal. Although, I mean, you could make a case for it. When Tiger Woods was at the height of his powers, he dominated at Bay Hill. And now Scottie is the big dog on the PGA Tour, and he, too, has been dominant at Arnie's Place. Scheffler's now won 2 of the last 3 Arnold Palmers with a 4th-place finish sandwiched in between. Rory obviously likes Bay Hill, too, Bo. In his last 5 Arnold Palmers, 1 win, 4 top 5s. His last 8 Arnold Palmers. 1 win, 4 top 5s, 6 top 10s. His worst finish over that stretch was 21st. Ooh. And so, like the 2 big favorites have played this course really well. A lot of the other guys, not quite as impressive with their track records. Xander Schauffele has finished no better than 24th here in 3 previous Arnold Palmers. Also hasn't played an event since the Century, way back in early January. You wonder if there's going to be any rust. Åberg did win his last event, the Genesis Invitational, but in 2 previous trips to Bay Hill, 24th and 25th. Collin Morikawa, great ball striker, but he's missed the cut here each of the last 2 years. Justin Thomas, I don't know, Bo. I just 25 to 1, if that's a good enough price on JT in an event with such a loaded field. He was 12th here a year ago. He lives in Florida. He's been top 10 in each of his last 2 events on tour. But yeah, I just can't get on board with those odds being so short. And then two guys from this group who do have a pretty good track record here. Sungjae Im, including back-to-back thirds for him in 2019 and 2020. But he hasn't been in good form at all lately. He's missed the cut in his last 2 events. And Matt Fitzpatrick also really hasn't done much this year, but he is a horse for the course. 4 top 10s in his last 6 trips to Bay Hill. All right, let's go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to make a comment on Schauffele and Morikawa, and Honestly, Ludwig Oberg is being getting a little bit of steam here. But especially with Oberg and Morikawa, what's killed them has been scrambling. And again, that's a very key statistic at Bay Hill, where if you get out of position, you have to be able to scramble and make pars, or even bogeys are a good score if you're out of position. Instead of bogey avoidance, you're looking at double bogey avoidance. I think that if there's any chink in the armor for Ludwig Oberg and Collin Morikawa, it's in the scrambling, where they haven't always been good at avoiding the big number when they're out of position. It seems like they're a little short for that. And I'll disagree with you on Justin Thomas. I think that he's a little underpriced with how well he fits this golf course. The only kind of bugaboo I've seen with Justin Thomas's game has been his long iron approach, which does play here. But the rest of his game, including scrambling and short game, have been spot on. He's also been really good off the tee lately. So I do think that Justin Thomas is worth a look, while Collin Morikawa and Ludwig Oberg might be getting more of the steam from what they've done on other golf courses that maybe fit them better than this one does.
Yeah, guys driving the ball well, as Justin Thomas has been doing, do have an advantage here. I don't think it's necessarily a bomber's paradise. I think guys who are shorter hitters can win here. But having a big driver and an accurate driver is certainly an edge. Moving on to the mid-range options, Wyndham Clark, Viktor Hovland, Sam Burns, Maverick McNeely, and Robert McIntyre are all 50-1. Tony Finau, Shane Lowry, Russell Henley, and Daniel Berger are 55-1. Tom Kim, Taylor Pendrith, Sepp Straka, and Corey Connors are 60-1. Michael Kim and Ben Griffin, two guys who've been pretty hot lately, they're 65-1. And at 70-1 are Siwoo Kim, Jason Day, Jake Knapp, and Akshay Bhatia. What about these guys, Bo? Does anyone stand out to you?
Well, it's funny that I'm going to completely contradict what I just said based on odds, but the two guys I have in this range are both not very good at scrambling, but they fit the golf course everywhere else, and I think that I'm favoring them versus the other shorter odds guys because their odds are longer. Tony Finau and Viktor Hovland. Neither one of these guys is synonymous with scrambling or getting up and down when they're in trouble, but they are synonymous with amazing ball striking that it will take here from tee to green. Tony Finau and Viktor Hovland, for me, have the ability to grind out good scores in tough conditions, which is why I'm kind of hovering my finger over those numbers. 55-1 for Finau, 50-1 for Hovland. Those two stand out to me pretty heavily. Another one that I couldn't quite get to was Corey Connors because on top of being a terrible scrambler, he has no short game to speak of. That's not going to play here at all. Keegan Bradley is the other one at 45-1 that is a little bit more solid across the bag. I just think that he's only going to compete here if the conditions get really difficult.
Yeah, Keegan is interesting, I think, for maybe a top 10 or a top 20. He's never been in real serious contention here, it seems like. He's always kind of lurking, makes the cut easily, cashes, but no real title threats, trophy threats here from Keegan Bradley. Viktor Hovland at 50-1, Bo. I can't pass up that value.
No.
I know Hovland hasn't made much noise in the 4 tour events he's played this year, but we know what he's capable of. And he has finished top 10 at the Arnold Palmer in 2 of the last 3 years, including a second to Scottie Scheffler in 2022. Shane Lowry has been playing well. He was 3rd here last year. And if the wind is howling, Bo, as it's supposed to on Thursday and Sunday, it is to the big Irishman's advantage. And I love betting Russell Henley on Florida courses. Bo, I'm just kind of addicted to it. Didn't quite work out last week. I had him at 23-1, was feeling pretty good about it at the Cognizant Classic, but I'm going to go back to the well at 50-1 this week. Longer odds with the better field. Henley's been top 10 in 3 of his last 4 events, and he was 13th at Bay Hill a year ago. What about long shots, Bo? Anyone with odds of 75-1 or longer who you are considering this week?
Not that many. This week is it's pretty much a front runners type course. You're not going to see a lot of unfamiliar names, which is kind of been the calling card of the PGA Tour so far this season. Is a lot of leaderboards with some lesser known names. This will not be that kind of week. I think at the top of my board, the farthest I'm going to go is 150-1 with playing terribly, but way too long and actually a pretty good fit for this golf course, Max Homa. Let's see if we can get Max on track again this season. It seems to be more mental with him. He's a really talented golfer, and he's shown us that he's won tough tournaments before with his exploits in Southern California a couple of years ago. I don't think he's that far gone from his best form. He's got to be better off the tee for sure, but he's still a great scrambler. He's still, despite being awful off the tee this season and last, he's been hanging around leaderboards every once in a while, and it's usually on a grinder type course like this. So Max Homa for me at 150 to 1 is crazy. And then, of course, if you're going to talk tough courses that challenge long iron approach, I'm going to take a stab at Justin Rose at 250 to 1. It just seems like a crazy long odds there. There's not much to that. I'm not going to throw a bunch of weight behind it, but I will give you an alternate to the Russell Henley bet. I see your Russell Henley bet, and I raise you a guy who's actually better for this golf course, has better history on this golf course, and across the board has better odds and are more likely to win here than is your guy Russell Henley, and that's Denny McCarthy. Denny McCarthy is going out at 75 to 1, and I'm not saying he's going to win, but a top 10 bet on him is a great value. This guy's third in this field in scrambling and fifth in bogey avoidance. He's also a really darn good approach player on long distances and one of the best short games in the world. Denny McCarthy is the guy I'm looking at in that mid-range or mid to high range that I would much rather play than Russell Henley this week.
Yeah, I like that call. With the short game, his ability with the flat stick. Once again, Bo, I have to put in a good word for Billy Horschel, a grinder who's at his best on tough courses. He's also been pretty good in Florida traditionally. Horschel was 25th last week in West Palm Beach. He finished second at Bay Hill in 2022. And another grinder, Harris English, 120 to 1. Won in tough conditions at the Farmers Insurance Open several weeks ago. Has 2 top 10s at Bay Hill in the last 5 years, including a second in 2023. So better than 100 to 1 odds on Harris English. I'm interested for sure. Let's go to the early betting cards, Bo. Who is on your card?
I have Rory McIlroy at plus 800. And then I'm going to go down to a little bit of Viktor Hovland at 50 to 1. Tony Finau 55. I think I will throw some Denny McCarthy money, more than a top 10. 75 to 1 is a pretty decent line for him. Not going to overinvest myself, but then I'm going to throw some long shots on Max Homa, despite my apprehension to the way he's played this season. Max Homa 150 to 1, and then 250 to 1 Justin Rose. I'm more going to be heavily investing in Rory McIlroy and Viktor Hovland like you are.
Now, I've been betting golf exclusively on DraftKings so far this year, and DraftKings did not have any top 5 or top 10 lines posted as of this morning, Monday morning. So for now, it's all outrights for me. Viktor Hovland at 50 to 1, Shane Lowry at 55 to 1, Russell Henley at 55 to 1, Billy Horschel at 80 to 1, and Harris English at 120 to 1. Once those top 5s and top 10s are up, I will probably piggyback you on Denny McCarthy, Bo. So now for the one and done competition. I had Russell Henley last week. He tied for 6th, good for $310,500. Bo had Jordan Spieth. He tied for 9th, good for $259,900. Solid weeks for both of us. My turn to bat leadoff this week, and I am going to take someone we didn't talk about who's played pretty well here traditionally, Bo, and should be okay if it gets windy. Tommy Fleetwood, the Englishman. How about you? Who are you taking?
Not Tommy Fleetwood, that's for sure. Sorry. I'm looking at my board. I've burned some big names already this year. Shoot, this is tough. I'll probably go with a guy who I didn't talk about yet either, and that's number 1 in scrambling in this whole field. I feel like he will make the 50-man cut, and he just seems to fit here, except for his approach game's been a little squirrely. Sam Burns. I'll take Sam Burns here because I think that he's the kind of guy who could surprise me, and without the threat of really missing a cut, I don't think he's going to be that bad here. I think I'd rather go for the big money play instead of a guy who's never won anything ever.
All right, so Sam Burns for Bo, Tommy Fleetwood for me. Before we get out of here, The Arnold Palmer is a small field, but running concurrently this week is the Puerto Rico Open, a full field event. Not a great field. Sam Stevens is the favorite at 20-1. Is there anyone you're interested in betting at the Puerto Rico Open, Bo?
Actually, yeah, Chan Kim at 30-1. He opened at 35, but Chan Kim's been playing great. The thing with Puerto Rico, it's a lot like the Mexico Open where they play on Paspalum. Long hitters are definitely favored here. So I love what I saw at a Chan Kim the last few weeks in some of those lower events. So I'm going to take a shot at him. I always love playing Rico Hoey. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Rico Hoey is at 35-1. And I know you're probably going to rubber stamp your approval on this, but Stanford guy Michael Thorbjornsen is in this field at 40-1. So I think I'll stick with those three guys. I'm not going to get over my skis at the Puerto Rico Open. I'm not that much of a degenerate, but I do want some action here, and those three guys are in my crosshairs.
Well, gosh, Bo, Michael Thorbjornsen's odds must have dropped after I bet him this morning, because I took him at 45-1. You know I was going to be all over that guy in this event. I love those odds in a weaker field event. I also like Bryce Garnett at 40-1. I mean, I never really love betting on defending champions, but 3 top 10s in the last 4 Puerto Rico Opens for Bryce Garnett, and he was 11th last week at the Cognizant Classic, so he comes in pretty good form. And Bo, I took your guy William Mao at 110-1. Had to take a long shot in Puerto Rico. So, and that's going to do it for this week's Betting Pros PGA Podcast. We will be back next week to preview another big event, the Players Championship, the unofficial 5th major. Until then, so long, everyone.